Welcome back to the channel. My name is Tronage, and today we're going to be talking about, well, we're really going to be talking about all the brushless whoops that I've been talking about. If you want to see some good flight footage, stick around. Alright guys, so I know you've been asking for some flight footage. It's a little bit chilly, but it was kind of a nice day. Kind of losing some sunlight, but I figured, you know what, you guys want to see these brushless things, so I decided to come over here to the park, little playground action, and we're going to zip them around. So here's what we have on the docket. We have Beta65x, we have Beta75x, we have the Mobula7, and for good measure, I threw in a regular Crazybee tiny whoop guy that's brushed, just for a comparison how it compares with those guys. We're also losing a little bit of light, so what's good about this is it'll be a good testament to see how the cameras are in a little bit lower light situations. So here's what I'm going to do. I don't want to fly one around a bunch to figure out a course, and then I kind of get used to that one, and then I fly the other ones and it feels different. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick one, start flying around. I'm not going to actually do a course per se. I'm just going to get a feel for zipping around the playground and see how it feels, and I'll basically compare them. Now I will tell you there's a very, very, very light breeze, almost not at all, so that's a good thing. It's pretty much ideal conditions for any kind of a brushless or brushed tiny whoops in an outdoor scenario, so I feel it's a pretty good example of the type of weather you'd want to fly in if you are flying these types of crafts outdoors, especially the ones that are running on a 1S type scenario or have the smaller motors. So without further ado, let's get in the goggles.
Alright, so here we have the Mobula7. This is the first flight, and it's also the first flight that I broke my frame on, so I'll show you that in a moment. But you can see here the camera looks good. Even though I'm like looking into the sun there, or the sunset, it's not washing out the floor, and everything kind of looks balanced and stuff. So I really like the camera on this, hitting the gaps. But right here, when I hit this pole, boom, that's when I cracked my frame. Let me back it up for you for a moment. You can see, if you look right here, the frame is clean. Click, 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 and now I'm cracked. So, and I go forward a little bit, you'll see when I hit the ground, it's all separated out like that. So, it is what it is. Next flight, checking it out. Flying around, you're really getting a feel for it, trying to hit those gaps, trying to get through the different gates and everything. But there's a lot of, see, like a lot of that, where it's just a lot of overcompensations and undercompensations. Because outdoors, I just feel like it needs a little bit more oomph. Its power to weight ratio is maybe a little off. But you can definitely pick up some speed and start zipping around if you want. You can see here I go pretty quick. Come in for a landing on the table. No, I'll land on the floor. And you notice these are very short flights, but it's just because it was cold out and the batteries just were not lasting very long at all. I would get low voltage warnings like right away. But here you'll see another example of just overcompensating, undercompensating, pinballing around. You know, indoors it's not as critical, but when you're outdoors and you have lots of space and you want to cover that ground, you need to throttle it up, and I feel like that's where this is a little bit lacking. But you can see if you want to do exploring, you just want to fly nice and slow, you can definitely fly slow and precise. That's where this one really shines, especially for like indoor, and there you can see my cracked frame right in the view there. This next flight, we're going to, again, try to just go through some of these gaps, get some speed. Just do a little exploring. In this last clip now, I'm gonna fly around a little bit, but I'm very intrigued with this twisty-do slide. And I'm thinking, man, it'd be really cool if I like went in there and did something cool with that. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna set myself up and I'm gonna go in there. Except, I kind of miss, I bounce off, and I crash. I'm like, oh, no problem. I'll just do my flip over after crash mode, flip myself over, and I'll be good. No problem. So I flip over to here. Okay, now I'm gonna pause it for a moment. I'm upside down still, not realizing that this shiny stuff here that kind of moved a little bit, I really wasn't paying attention much, that's a puddle of water that I'm sitting in upside down. So my canopy right now is keeping all the electronics out of the water. And then I go, well, I need to flip over. So I flip over, and all of a sudden my video feed will cut. And I'll bet you figured out why. Yep, water and LiPo batteries on the bottom of your craft don't mash up too well. So we play, I try to flip, and there we go, it cuts. Yeah. So now we have the Beta65x, now that the Mobula is been sacrificed to the water gods. And you can see this was a minute or two after that, and this camera is a little darker, and you'll see that when I get too much of the sky in the view, then the ground gets really dark. So I feel like the camera in the Mobula is a much better camera, especially if you're going to be flying in a low light scenario or indoors and stuff. But you can see though that the 65x just has a little bit more, I don't know, the power to rate ratio feels a little bit better. I tried doing a little freestyle split S there, but it felt very forced because it just didn't have the power it needs. But I felt like zipping it around was much more enjoyable of a experience. Again, trying to do a little bit of a split S, but it's just not working out for me. So I'm trying to get it in there, but you know, it just has this forced feel to it. Try to do like a little over-under thing and miss that. And then I just come in for a landing. You can see the 65x definitely has a lot of zip. I don't have that overcompensating feeling with it. It can just get you where you want to go. You have a real good time flying it outside. But you really can't freestyle it too much. But you still get that thrill of like racing through gates and stuff if you want. You can see I crashed into a pole there and it did not crack this frame. So this frame I just feels a little bit more durable than the Mobula one. And this little fire truck thing, try to go through it the first time and I don't make it, and then I slide down the slide, which I thought was kind of cool. But I can just do my little flipperoo and then I'm good to go here. But this fire truck will reach out and grab me again in a little bit. And you'll see what I mean when I'm flying the 75x, which is up next. So here we have our 75x now. Much more responsive, much more authority with the sticks. It just felt like I was flying like a 3-inch or a 5-inch, quad. Easily dodging things that pop out in front of me. Little freestyle action. However, you have to remember you're not way up in the air like you would be on a 3 or 5-inch quad. That was from about 10 or 12 feet, and I learned quickly I can't do a long inverted hang time on my split S. But just flipped back over and kept on flying. No damage, no anything. And here's where that fire truck grabs. Reached out, grabbed me, plucked me out of the air. Somehow I ended up underneath it, which that part I don't understand. So on this video now, I end up actually what I thought was breaking my camera. But actually what happened is the camera assembly is only attached to the flight controller with a set of pins. So when I crash here in a moment, you'll see, and it's actually that little yaw move, that was the cause of the crash. But you can see here, these are the pins, and they just lift up out of the flight controller. So the easy fix is just push them back in and you're good to go. But what I'm actually gonna do is put a little blob of like E6000, just a tiny dab just to hold them in place so they don't pop out after crashes again, because that would be rather unfortunate to have that happen. So since I thought it was broken, I'm going to now move back to the 65X. And you can see it's getting really dark now at this point. If I get too much sky in the view, the ground goes near black. But still having fun, still buzzing around everything, still having a great time. I was still annoyed at this thing not hitting that gate before, so I made sure I had to go through it again. And this is the last flight of the night, and you can see it's really getting dark. Very difficult to see. That's the moon in the upper right there. Right here, that's the moon, to give you an idea of how dark it is. At this point I said it's just too dark, I can't really see anything. So I figured I'd just end it with a couple little slingshot orbits. And land.
Oh, it was cold out there, so I'm really happy to be nice and warm here in the studio. All right, so we basically went over the flights, gave you my little commentary about them all. And now let me give you my overall impressions. So the Mobula7 is definitely awesome if you are just getting into the hobby, you want to learn how to fly. It's awesome indoors, and it's very marginal outdoors. Like if you try to do anything really big outdoors, it's going to struggle. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's gonna struggle if you try to push it outdoors. But indoors, out of all of them, it's the one that I had the most fun with. And let's face it, indoors, you have a lot more time that you can spend flying, because the moment it gets dark, you can still fly indoors because you have lights on. The moment it's raining, snowing, too cold, too hot, too anything, you can still fly indoors. So I would say out of all of these, the Mobula7 is the one that I would pick for mostly indoor flying, and a little bit of outdoor, like a little bit. Like you're not freestyling it, but you may be just doing some playground action like I was doing. So the Beta65x, where do we sit with that one? Well, here's where I'd say it lands. Right now I've been flying a lot of the unicorn motors on the Crazybee, which is pretty intense motors to put on a little tiny whoop. But that's really what you need on a tiny whoop to be able to fly outdoors per se. However, those motors are very expensive. They burn themselves out god awfully quick. They're an amazing motor, but just because it's such a powerful motor, they burn out very quickly. Brushless motors, on the other hand, don't fall to that same victim. So essentially, you're getting the same concept, but it's a brushless motor instead of brushed. And that also has benefits like when you land upside down, you can, flip yourself over. You can't do that with a brushed
quad. If it's brushed, you can't spin the motors the other way to flip yourself back over. So that's a nice little touch. So if you want sort of the middle ground of it, it can do indoors good, but you need to be a little bit experienced, or you got to take it really slow. And you can take it outdoors and you can do a little bit more freestyling because, you know, it's got a little bit more oomph. Then that's where I think the Beta65x lands, because it's the same motors as the Mobulus, but it's a smaller package. Therefore, it just works a little bit better. And that brings us to the Beta75x. This was a dream to fly outdoors. It was fun. It had all the pickup I wanted. I was able to do freestyling with it. I could do racing with it. Like, really, if you want to pick one of these that you're going to use outdoors, you really want the 75X, because that one has much more power and it's able to just act kind of like a normal quad outdoors. Now, indoors, unless you have a lot of space, it's a little bit powerful. It's sort of like the probably mostly outdoors or indoors if you're a really good pilot, or you just take it really, really, really slow for practicing indoors. So essentially, if you want to think like, here's indoors and here's outdoors, here's the Mobula7. Here in the middle is the BetaFPV 65X. And over here, that would be where I'd put the BetaFPV 75X. So for the cameras on these, I really didn't get a chance to fly them too much because I kind of got a little bit of a late start and daylight kind of snuck up on me. And I also had a couple of issues. As you saw, the Mobulus ended up in a puddle. I did crack a frame on the Mobulus, by the way, so I will attest to that. I crashed just the same with all these. The BetaFPV products, there's not an issue. The Mobula7 has a cracked frame now. So it's not a major crack. It's just, you know, it's like one of these rings cracked. I mean, I don't have it in here because it's drying in some desiccant. But it cracked. So I'm going to see if I can just glue it with a little bit of the welder. If not, I have the frames to replace it with. So that's just something to keep in mind because I was flying it in cold weather. So number one, the battery packs in the cold, they lose their voltage quick. It's just the way batteries function. When you're in the cold, they're going to drop voltage very fast, especially when you have these little itty bitty batteries. They're super tiny and they basically get cold very quickly, which is another advantage to the 75X using the big 2S pack. Being a bigger, chunkier pack, it doesn't get as cold as quick, and it wasn't having those voltage issues that, you know, they don't exist indoors because it's normal room temperature in here, so the voltages are fine. It's probably also partially in that I'm not pushing it as hard indoors as I am outdoors, so when you're flying it around at near full throttle constantly, it drains the batteries pretty quick. So that's another thing to keep in mind, that the BetaFPV 75X just seemed to hold its own better with the battery. That's really what I'm trying to say here. But back to the cameras. What I would say is the Mobulus one did seem to have a little bit of a better feel to it. I liked it better than the others, but then it was also more daylight when I flew it because I flew it first. However, when I switched to the Beta65 and 75Xs, their cameras were still pretty decent. I would say the cameras that I have experience with, they're better than, let's say, like the TBS micro camera. We got that in, I think, one of the quad boxes or drone drops, and I've used it. And when you start getting into a low light scenario, it starts really struggling to where it'll be like it's just black, not shadowy, not hard to see, but it just kind of conks out, and it just doesn't have that sensitivity. While these cameras, when I took the goggles off, I was like, wow, it's really dark, and I was still able to see. Now, obviously, at the end, you saw I was really struggling to see, and a lot of it was just going off of, you know, perceptual memory of what's around me and just interpolating kind of a thing. I wasn't really flying off of visual cues per se. Basically, just from what I've told you, you got to really think about
what you plan on doing it, where you plan on flying it, and how you plan on flying it. And that'll sort of lead you to which of these is right for you, because I wouldn't say any of them is better or worse. It's really just which is more appropriate to what you're doing. One saying that my dad always says, and it's so true, when you have the correct tool, a job becomes very easy. If you ever try to do something using the wrong tool and you try to, rig something up, it's always a frustration. But if you have the exact right tool, it always works beautifully. And that's essentially what I'm saying here. Pick the right tool for the right task that you choose to fly in, and you will have an awesome time, because I had a great time with all of these as long as you respect what they're capable of. If you try to push them too hard, like I was trying to do some freestyling with the 65X and the Mobula7, and it can kind of do it, but it doesn't feel, it feels forced. It doesn't feel smooth. It doesn't feel right. I tried doing a little bit of it with the Beta75X before the camera conked out, and I could feel it. I could feel it starting to happen. And, that's what you have to consider. All right. So I hope that helped you get a little information about these. Maybe figure out if any of these are right for you and the way you want to fly. If you do decide to purchase one of these, please use one of those affiliate links down in the description below. They do help support the channel and do help me bring you guys some great content. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button down there. While you're at it, hit that bell icon. Makes finding my videos a little bit easier, and it keeps you updated when I post new content and new videos. Helps support the channel, and it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe on YouTube. But I really appreciate that support. So as always, my name is Tronage. Fly strong.